scary.
Yes. Well, I chugged a monster before this, and it said "Unleash the Ultra Beast." So,
Appropriate.
That's appropriate.
Yes.
That sounds like a horror film title.
right?
Pietro, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jeff. It's great to be here.
One of us. Gobble gee. One of us.
Gabba, gabba.
Wait, Pietro, do you get that reference? That's your first test.
Well, I mainly know it because of the Ramones song, but I know that that's
Yep.
a reference to Freaks, right?
Yes.
Which I have not watched.
That's
but
right.
yes.
And also on the table is The Exorcist Legacy
Oh,
brought by Simon.
yeah. Sorry, I was gonna plug some of Pietro's later 700s in the nonfiction
great.
section.
Yes, yes.
So great.
Um,
Well, without further ado, you're listening to A Little Too Quiet. It's the Ferndale Library Podcast, and it's brought to you by the Friends of the Ferndale Library.
Woo!
library.
And today we're talking about horror again.
Yeah.
Because I think we did this a year ago
Yes.
when Simon hosted his first horror movie trivia night at 215 West in downtown Ferndale, and it's happening again.
All right.
Nice Twin Peaks quote. But yeah, it's been a year. We've done, I don't know, 5 or 6 trivia nights at this
5
point.
or 6.
Yeah.
It is happening
Again.
again.
Prepare yourselves.
And this time, we're joined by Pietro.
Hello.
Because we like talking about movies with Pietro, and he also collects for the 790s,
Yeah.
I do.
otherwise known as the movie part of Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it 791? It's 791.
Somewhere in there. But no, part of the prep for this podcast was Jeff asking us like, why horror is appealing.
Yeah.
And there is I'm reading this book, The Exorcist Legacy, 50 Years of Fear, because it is the 50th anniversary of The Exorcist. And it opens with a story from one of the first film critics to see it on Christmas Day in Boston.
That's right. It was released in December.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And talking about how, as a new father, he was particularly freaked out by that movie because it took him to a place of, what if this started happening to my newborn kid?
Right.
Like, yada, yada. And then it just kind of goes into, like, horror is a way to, like, explore terrifying topics and like, really interrogate how you would interact with it, et cetera, but from, like, one step removed. So it's not actually happening to you, but yeah.
I never actually really externalized or articulated that
Yeah.
you just said.
Right?
And I find it to be profound.
Yeah. But I mean,
Absolutely.
sometimes you just want to watch, Bela Lugosi chase someone in a bear costume. So it doesn't have to be that serious, but it can be that serious.
It's a big spectrum.
Yes.
Pietro, thoughts on The Exorcist? Have you ever seen it?
The Exorcist was perhaps the first scary movie I watched all the way through.
Oh, well, that was going to be my first question
Right.
for you.
So it's either Blair Witch Project or The Exorcist.
Oh, good answers either way.
And I watched it when I was like maybe 12 or 13, and maybe for that reason, it's the first and scariest movie I think I've ever seen, because it lives in my mind as a scared 13-year-old who was at a sleepover and both of his friends fell asleep, and then I was just like sitting there having a panic attack for
Right.
the next 5 hours or so while I watched music videos on MTV at 4 a.m.
Oh, yeah. Very similar to my experience seeing Hereditary for the first time, except obviously I wasn't 13. But
Yeah.
what's funny is both of those movies could be described as things that are like they're obviously both horror movies, but both the writer and director of The Exorcist are very much like, yeah, it was just kind of secondarily a horror movie.
Sure.
At first, it was like a drama about a mom and her
Yeah.
daughter, and also like a whodunit.
Yeah.
And Hereditary is like a family drama that just kind of turns
Yeah.
into a possession movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. Yes, it does. There's a bet. No, I'm not going to try that pun yet. Maybe later.
Something about
It requires seeing Hereditary to get the pun, and that might be niche.
something about horror movies with children is something that just really like
Sure.
makes me sweat.
Okay.
It makes it very scary for me.
Sure.
And I've never seen the Child's Play movies, even though from what I've been led to believe they're more like campy funny than
Especially
Scary.
lately. I will
Yes.
also say the TV show is really good.
Nice.
Better than it has any right to be, but also like actively written by queer people for queer people. It's yeah. It really leans into the campiness of it.
nice. That is surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of leads me to Megan, but I don't
Yeah,
know. We're getting a little derailed like off the bat.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll bring us back to Exorcist eventually. But
Sure.
yes, Child's Play, creepy dolls in general,
Yeah.
also is a whole other level there.
Right.
But then your most recent example of child horror is probably Megan, spelled
Yeah.
I think with a 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
M3 again.
Yeah, that's right.
Which will make it extra confusing when the inevitable third one comes out.
Yeah, that was a pretty good horror film. I don't
Yeah.
know why I wanted just a little bit more from it. That's my lackluster review for you.
Yeah, and that's one tying it back to, it doesn't have to be that serious.
Yeah.
I just remember there was an interview with the writer of the movie being like, "Oh, yeah, it's about found family and stuff, which is probably why it resonates so much with the queer community." And I'm like, "No. No, she dresses fabulously and does a TikTok dance while stabbing tech bros. It is not that serious."
Doesn't have to be that serious.
Yeah.
What is the thing about The Exorcist? I'll bring it back. Also, R.I.P. William Friedkin, the director
Yeah.
of the film, passed away like a month ago. He won the Academy Award for the French Connection, but I don't think he won anything for this.
No, this was infamously
Exorcist.
the first horror movie nominated for an Oscar, but
Right.
it did not win.
Right.
That was a trivia question last year, so it won't be a repeat this year.
Yeah,
but
no cheating, everybody.
That was the first horror movie like that ever got nominated
for Best Picture.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, there was
Wow.
kind of a whole sea change when Rosemary's Baby came out, and everyone was like, wait a minute, is horror sophisticated?
oh
Is
yeah.
Right.
horror like artistic? And then you got The Exorcist.
Yet Toni Collette snubbed.
Yeah, for
Hereditary.
Hereditary. One of the most profound performances ever.
Yeah.
Like, I feel exhausted by the end of that movie, watching everything she gave. Blood, sweat, tears, headbutts, everything.
Crawling.
Crawling, gnashing, yelling, crying.
Sawing motions.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to turn the lights on in my house after I watched that movie. It got me.
Oh, yeah. That's great. What is the... Let's just stay on The Exorcist. Is there anything about that movie that scares you the most? You say kids.
Kids and vomiting. Projectile vomiting, I think.
Oh yeah.
I think the thing that creeps me out the most about horror is just possession or general or demonic things. It could be the devil. It could not be the devil. It could be Pazuzu. It doesn't have to be the top dog devil. Just something from beyond the veil that's interacting with you
Yeah.
is crazy. The thing I love about The Exorcist, besides staring down that long stairway, is the kind of like the climactic sequence, and they linger on the two priests getting ready with their little costumes. That's really
Please put in like a badly edited word when you remember what it is other than costumes.
their vestments,
Six.
their collars, and there's just
The
something
cloth.
there's just something about the gossamer fragile white frilly thing that they put on. Like, you're about to go fight the devil and you're putting on like a little cotton t-shirt. And they do share a look between the two of them, like, this is futile, isn't it? Like, we don't stand a chance. And I'm like, no, you don't, it's the devil. So that's my favorite scene from The Exorcist.
I like how at the outset too they preface it with like, this has happened however many number of times. It almost gives in a real way, like the Fargo thing where
Yeah.
like So that was effective and scary for me
Oh,
as well, like
sure.
right at the outset.
Sure.
Yeah. I also just the futileness of it. It also plays in with the original Omen too, because it's like, yeah, nobody makes it out of the Omen
Mm-hmm.
except Damien.
Mm-hmm.
But
Worst birthday party ever.
yeah,
So, okay, yeah. So that was your answer to the first horror film you
So
ever saw.
It sort of is, Jeff.
Okay.
Because I think I have these like sort of imagistic ideas in my head about being very young as both the youngest brother and the youngest cousin being shielded from watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre like at Easter or something like that in my cousin's basement, and like being told like you have to leave the room.
Talk more about that.
So we're in the basement. There's baseball cards with applesauce on them. It's kind of dingy and dark.
I love this.
I'm
Paint a
the
picture.
youngest of about 6 cousins. And I don't even know if they had to say like, hey, you need to go. This is too scary for you. Or if I was like, I'm going to go outside and shoot basket or something like that. I'm not sure. And I would probably like tuck my head around
Oh,
the corner. And so I can just see that saturated color. I can see a chainsaw. And it's hard to distinguish what I actually did see at that age and what has stuck in my mind of like, oh, it's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So there must be a chainsaw coming and blood. But having watched that movie now as an adult, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
But maybe not so much as a 7-year-old.
There is. Go ahead, Simon. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was gonna be a little bit mean.
Please.
And once again call out the Livonia Public Library
Uh-oh.
for accidentally having the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Right.
in the shared catalog as the original Texas Chainsaw
Yeah,
Massacre.
that happened to me with The Thing.
I have contacted them a few times to get that fixed, and they haven't done it yet.
Here's the thing. The Thing and Chainsaw Massacre and Evil Dead and several more.
Yeah.
There have been modern remakes, and yeah, you do encounter that in library world
Yeah.
where it's miscatalogued.
But also just too bad when you were 7 it wasn't the remake of Texas Chainsaw where the boom mic is just visible in several shots despite it being a much higher budget / quality air quotes production.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1975. Is it Tobe Hooper or Toby Hooper?
Oh, I don't even remember, honestly.
And so the thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that I find interesting is it touches into something barely related to The Exorcist and quasi-related to Blair Witch Project.
Okay.
Is this like added element of mystery where there was all kinds of maybe urban legends that perhaps the actual devil was on set during The Exorcist. Some
Yeah.
people really actually got sick while making it. Something was there.
9 people died.
Yeah, like it was a cursed production.
Yikes.
And the Blair Witch Project, 1999, everyone was like, was it real? Or at least for a couple months, people think
Sure.
it's 100% real. And OMG, what does that mean? When we get to the dinner table scene of Chainsaw Massacre, I think those people are all crazy. And to this day, maybe they all really are. And I think this isn't fiction.
That would do it.
No one in this film knows they're in a movie. This is all real. That exists. That's on Earth. That's gonna kill me.
Yeah,
So-
that's, once again, horror movies allow you to think about things in a way, but like 1 degree removed. When you think about the actual numbers for serial killers and things in America, it can be a little overwhelming, but you take it 1 degree removed and you're like,
Right.
Texas Chainsaw,
Yeah.
or X,
Right.
or Pearl. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Ty West is the director of those films
Yeah.
that you just mentioned, and has it officially been finished as a trilogy, or is it going to be a
The
trilogy?
third one is filming right now. The trailer
right.
has been cut.
X is a film that taps into or kind of conjures some chainsaw energy
Similarly.
because it's a bunch of people in a van
Yep.
driving.
Yep.
Who wind up at a barn,
Yep.
but they are doing something specifically when they get
Yes.
there.
Right.
And also not cannibals. In
Also
fact,
not cannibals.
I had a friend of mine that was like, I really wanted to see X, but the cannibal thing really freaks me out. I couldn't finish Texas Chainsaw, so I was like, no cannibals.
No cannibals.
That sort of touches on one of the other allures of horror. You mentioned serial killers and whatnot. And I think that it's really, this is a weird way to put it, but it's comforting to be able to think like, okay, this is what pure evil looks like.
Yeah.
As opposed to like somebody's uncle or like, you know, somebody that works a regular job and has a family. It's more comforting to be able to think of them as like an animal monster
Sure.
who is purely evil. So that I think lets us feel a little bit more comfortable about the regular evils of the world.
But that being said, I think it's not really a horror movie, but the end scene in Zodiac where it's like you're 99% sure it is this dude, but there's no actual proof, and he's just sitting there in his hardware store job.
Right.
Like,
That's
yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Too, for sure.
Is there, Simon, a question maybe directly for you? Also, Pietro invited to join, but because horror has subgenres. Are there subgenres you like, A, and are there subgenres that you've grown out of or no longer like that you once liked?
Great question.
It is a great question.
Because I have an answer off the bat, and I've grown away from the slashers, and I've grown away from murdery horror.
Sure.
That's my take. And then I've really, I think I've already shown my cards that I like demonic stuff and I like supernatural.
Yep. I would say I never really got into like the gorehound horror, the like Saw, Hostel, et cetera, et cetera. That was never my bag.
Sorry, Eli Roth.
I'm not sorry. But like that was just never my bag. But in terms of like, I think you also asked me to prep lists of like classics to talk about, and I broke it down by like geographical region and time period.
Ooh, okay.
Because I'm a nerd. But I mean, honestly, I'd say pretty much anything that has, well, that's not like that gorehound stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to nail down like a specific genre because for like American horror movies, like obviously you've got the classic Universal ones. My favorites are like Invisible Man, Dracula. I just read a whole thing about the woman that designed the creature from the Black Lagoon and how she was like uncredited and then fired after a press tour and all this other stuff. But like that one's amazing too. And then like you've got the Italian horror movies, which like you've got what was it, Black Sabbath, which has just the massive gothic black and white.
I think that's Mario Bava.
Mario Bava, yeah. But then you've also got Dario Argento, where it's like insanely saturated with color.
Right.
Like I love both of those.
Hyperrealism.
Yeah.
Surrealism.
Yeah. And then you've got Asia, Japan specifically. That's where most of the ones come. Well, U.S. releases. I have started getting some more interesting Korean and Thai horror movies for our collection, but you got classics like Onibaba, which is like another demon possession type thing. Kuroneko, same.
Yeah.
But then you've got all the ones that got American remakes like Ring, Grudge, etc., which fun. I guess, yeah. If you want to study anything for upcoming trivia night, I've been watching a lot of those again recently.
Nice.
Because they put out like a Grudge versus the Ring movie, and then I was like, I should go back and watch these again. Because that was a lot better than it had any right to be. Somebody watches the Ring tape in the Grudge house, and then they get into a knockdown, drag out war over who gets to take their soul.
Amazing.
Crossover.
But yeah, and then there's like like the original Godzilla movie, technically a horror movie. There was a giant monster.
Sure.
But yeah.
What is the phrase for Dario Argento Italian gelato? It's not gelato.
It's not gelato. Giallo.
Thank you so much.
Which means yellow.
Keeping that on the podcast. But his films, amazing films, get kind of murdery.
Yeah.
But in this interesting way where it's always just like a black gloved hand from off screen is reaching in. And it, I probably sound like a sick, dark, twisted person for giggling about that. But I prefer Dario when there's an added element. So if there's maybe witches like Suspiria, or if there's telepathically controlled insects, like in Phenomenon, which is a movie that exists starring Jennifer Connelly.
Yep.
I will send you, Pietro, the
Okay,
link.
I think it's on Canopy.
Good.
Yeah, I've seen Suspiria. I have not seen his other work.
Phenomenon is a fun ride.
Demons is ridiculous.
Oh, demons!
Yeah.
Demons attack a movie theater.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Specifically, an advanced screening of a horror movie. They are actually
Ooh, the
possessing
meta.
the film, and then they possess the people in the theater
Okay.
watching the film. Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
But yeah, no. Suspiria is like, it's gory, but it's gory in such a ridiculous way. Like, of course there's a room filled with barbed wire in the basement of a
course.
dance studio. Why wouldn't there be?
Of course.
And they got Goblin too, so that
Yeah.
helps with the stylization.
the proggy psychedelic rock band known as Goblin,
Yes.
who also do the music for Phenomenon, I
and
think.
Demons.
So yeah,
Nice.
tune in.
I mean, I guess I'm now promoting things that aren't even library related, but Goblin is coming back to Pontiac to
Great.
play along to the soundtrack to Demons while screening Demons. I saw
Cool.
Suspiria that way last year. It was very fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I've seen advertisements for those things.
As of right now, at this very instance, on the cusp of October, currently in the multiplex is The Nun 2. So that's what's currently in the mainstream of horror. And I actually just watched The Nun Part 1
I
from 2018 for the first time. And, you know, it was
It's a
fine.
movie.
It's fun. Yeah, it's a movie. There's jump scares. And
okay.
it's just,
Boggles my mind that there's like 17 Conjuring movies at this
And-
point.
that's the thing is like Insidious 3/Insidious 5 just came out. And
Yeah.
Simon and I were just chatting about this. Like, these movies may or may not be, they're not bad.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't also feel like they're changing the game really. And they'll just make $75 million
Sure.
in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway, I
That's
think.
the-
Yep.
you just go out
While
and have some-
costing barely anything in terms of Hollywood production budgets.
But I haven't seen Skinamarink yet, which is a very independent, very
Yeah.
modestly budgeted film that also did seem to do well at the theaters.
Yeah,
so-
again, it's
while angering people.
yeah. I like that and Talk to Me.
Ah, yes.
Like Talk to Me was incredible, but also when trying to pin down what was incredible about it, there's nothing really inherently original about the story.
Sure.
It's just incredibly well acted, amazing pacing, the editing is amazing, the ending is really unique, and every review I've read of that movie says that the ending that hates the movie says the ending is just terrible and the worst. And I'm like, actually, the ending is maybe the most philosophically like terrifying thing about the whole thing.
I don't know if anything I'm about to say is extraordinary, but that's what I find to be happening with horror right now is that it's still a polarizing genre.
Yeah.
You either love it or you hate it,
Yep.
or there's occasionally Nun 2 and Insidious 5, and people are like, okay,
Yeah,
it's a
okay,
movie.
Sure.
It's something.
Yep. It doesn't
But-
have to be that serious, but it can be.
Skinamarink, polarizing. Some people loved it. Some people hated
Yeah.
it.
Oh, Malignant.
Malignant. Some
There's
people love it.
another
Some
one.
people hate it.
Yeah.
Which, Malignant, while we're on tangents here.
Well, we're on tangents about The Conjuring
While we're on
specifically.
tangents about The Conjuring. I think it's the same director.
It is the same director.
as The Conjuring, but this film, let's see. I think I accurately told a friend that if they enjoyed a little bit of giallo gelato Italian style horror that decides it wants to become Cronenbergian body horror for the last 20 minutes, then they would
Yep.
enjoy Malignant, and they still didn't enjoy it.
Well, you tried your best.
But I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some
same.
people just love and hate. Okay, let's bring it back to focus here. Let's talk about classic horror. Have you seen any classic horror films, Pietro? Have you seen Psycho? Have you seen
yes.
The Freaks?
I
Sorry,
have not.
Sorry, Freaks.
Yeah, I think within the last 3 years, I tried to go like take a tour through the classics quote unquote, more so I guess of like sort of the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. So I watched the first couple Halloween movies. I watched Nightmare on Elm Street. I watched Friday the 13th. And that was really fun to explore those, especially as somebody who's not a 7-year-old in a basement with applesauce baseball cards. So that made it a lot more enjoyable to watch them in the comfort of my own home with popcorn and whatnot. So it was cool to kind of get to discover those at a later phase, for sure.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anything earlier than that? I just felt old suddenly when you was like, early 80s is classic. Well, I guess it's accurate.
That
Sure.
is true.
I mean, I'm still going through the Hitchcock catalog, and a lot of that, I don't know if you want to qualify it as horror or not, but there's some stuff on my Canopy watch list that fill that
Nice.
sort of niche. Yeah, I haven't seen The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
You should dig it up.
Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro's like favorite film.
Yeah.
He also, I think he says that about everything. I'm sorry, Guillermo.
Well, yeah, but also he essentially made his own fan fiction version of it with Shape of Water.
That's
so
right.
I think if anything, it actually lists as
Yes.
his favorite movie.
More classic picks from you, Simon?
Well, you know when George Romero died a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly everybody's been digging out his back catalog besides just the various of the Living Dead movies.
Oh, I think I know where you're going.
Oh, well, I mean, I just, like during the pandemic, I started watching some of his goofy back catalog of things. The, what was it, The Visitors? Or was it it was The Visitors, right? That one's incredible. But then some of his, like, incredibly low budget, weird things, like Season of the Witch, that's barely a movie. But it's got vibes for days. And then I think we're one of the only libraries in the system that has a copy of his The Amusement Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which freaked me out.
Yes.
It's like only like a 65-minute movie too, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of shorter.
Yeah, it is short. Same thing with Season of the Witch. I think
Yeah.
that one's only like an hour too. But yeah.
Off the rails.
Absolutely.
Surrealism on screen.
Yeah. And then I also have just because I got a Shudder subscription, so I've just been watching a lot of like weird 70s stuff that I hadn't seen before. Especially the goofy Italian movies that they have, like All the Colors of the Dark, which I've never even heard of outside of people that have Shudder subscriptions, but like it's such a it's another one of those like woman accidentally gets entangled in a demon cult type thing.
Oh, no.
Oh no. Messiah of Evil is another 70s one that I got really into recently.
By Romero or someone else?
Somebody else, don't even remember who. It's an incredibly generic title. But I saw it in like a recommended if you liked Carnival of Souls, speaking of classic horror movies that don't get enough love. And I love Carnival of Souls, so I was like, heck yeah, let's do this. And it's about a woman who receives a cryptic letter from her father. He's living in a remote Pacific Northwest town. And it's like, oh, you'll never see me again. Don't come looking for me. Ah! And of course she goes looking for him. And the entire town is like an immortal cult of demon type things. Yeah. So she's got to like try and survive the night in this town. And she runs into like a group of tourists who are just trying to see if it is actually a haunted town.
Wow.
And they got to try and survive the night. I mean, spoiler alert, no one really survives the night.
Dope.
Oh, yeah. But like with an incredibly generic title like Messiah of Evil, how are you ever going to find something like that,
Sure.
right? But yeah, look up the trailer. It's got some compelling, not of its time acting. Yeah.
1931, Dracula and Frankenstein. Sometimes I'm unable to like process that those two weird, creepy, macabre gothic movies were released in like Calvin Coolidge's America or something, or Hoover or whatever. Like it doesn't sync up for me. So I can fully understand how people were completely mesmerized and like, oh, also terrified, sure, but like that's some weird gonzo, literally batty stuff
Yeah.
to be
my
inflicting
my
that.
favorite bisexual socialist as a vampire, But like that's my grandfather talks about the Wolfman all the time. It was like he snuck out of the house to go to the movies, and it was the Wolfman, and he was terrified, and he ran all the way home, but he couldn't tell his mother what scared him so bad because he wasn't supposed to go see the Wolfman. Yeah.
So you have the monsters in the 30s.
Yeah.
And Wolfman is 1941, so it's kind of the tail end of that monstery stuff. My dad, who is older and probably old enough to be a grandpa, is someone who experienced this next wave of like Atom Age horror or so his big thing of like having things burned into his memory is the movie called Them.
Oh yeah.
About giant ants, which is a movie that should be terrible, right? But actually is pretty good.
Yeah.
Or a movie much more highly regarded, or on the surface seemingly to be a better movie, is The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is it sci-fi? Is it horror? A little scary, but that's that next wave. And then you get into the 60s, and then the Hammer horror British folks are like...
Hammer was kind of started in the 50s.
Okay, yeah,
though
that's
right. It's hard to like remember that because their big thing was like, oh, we're just in color.
Right.
We're the classics, but in color.
Right. I believe, if I could be just nerdy, you both know that I love numbers and stats and trivia.
Sure.
Christopher Lee's Dracula, I think, is 57.
Oh, yeah.
We'll check that later.
Okay.
Yeah. That was another one of the
Gotta check it
questions
now.
from... Yes, that was another...
Later.
It was another one of the questions last year. It was like, who played Dracula in 10 different films? And the answer is Christopher Lee.
58. So
Yeah.
close.
So close.
But for some people, that's their Dracula.
Yeah.
It's like debating Bonds.
Yeah, if you saw a visual representation of my movie collection, it's like, okay, movies, and then you get to the D's and it's like Dracula, with like a bazillion different people playing Dracula.
The king of horror. The most movies probably dedicated to that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm curious if
yeah.
there's a number attached to the number of Dracula depictions.
Well, I mean, even just off the top of our head,
Right.
there's Bela Lugosi, there's Christopher Lee,
Yeah.
there's Gary Oldman, there's
Yeah, there's oh crap, what was that dude's name?
and it's
Shoot,
not
Vampire in Venice, which got renamed as a Dracula at some point.
and there's
yeah.
not and then I think Werner Herzog even made a Dracula.
Yes, that's the one I'm thinking of.
With Klaus Kinski.
Yes, Klaus Kinski.
Klaus
Thank
Kinski
you.
in Venice.
Yes.
Oh, Max Schreck. We can't forget.
Oh yeah, Max Schreck. Which oh man. And then there's also the subgenre of Dracula movie, which is movies about making Dracula movies.
Ooh.
There's oh my god, I'm completely forgetting, but you reminded me with Max Schreck. There's a movie with Willem Dafoe playing Max Schreck.
Shadow of the Vampire.
Shadow of the Vampire, where the plot of it is that Max Schreck actually was a vampire.
Yes.
And it's got like John Malkovich as the director.
That's right.
Okay.
But then most recently, kind of disappointing, except for the 45 minutes that Nick Cage was in it, Renfield, where they like literally recreate the 1930s Bela Lugosi Dracula as part of like the origin flashback with Nick Cage just absolutely hamming it up, pretending to be Bela Lugosi. It was incredible.
Still have not seen that movie.
It's not.
As someone who's currently reading Dracula,
Yeah.
it's fun to like, now I know all the little offshoots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've been told I've been muttering in a scared way in my sleep since
no.
I've been starting to read Dracula because it's getting to me. It's great though.
Yeah, I'm fully a Dracula novel defender. I think it's great. It is interesting to go back and look at Sheridan LaFoe's Vampire, which came out I think like 20 years before Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's
1870s.
yeah, it's not all the translations I found of it aren't that great, but it did get turned into another Oh yeah, it did get turned into another movie that came out the same year as Bela Lugosi's Dracula, same title, Vampire with a Y.
Oh, cool.
Except it was just like right on the verge of talkies versus silent movies, and that one was silent, and it's a lot more lesbian forward instead of homoerotic.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've got both. Come check them out.
Interesting.
Sweet. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
I was Dracula for my Halloween when I was 7.
Okay.
And
That explains a lot.
the cape, and I had the little medallion and slick back hair and fake teeth and the whole thing, and it was a hoot. There's been lots and lots of movies made concerning Dracula, lots of actors who played Dracula, and that's just a cursory glance at the internet. Doesn't really even begin to touch upon. There have been several non-Western productions of Dracula 2 that we have to consider too. So
Ooh, yeah. I will say the one that is really fun and worth looking up, especially if you're very familiar with the Bela Lugosi one, is the Spanish language one that came out the same year, literally filmed on the same sets. Like the Bela Lugosi one filmed during the day, and then when their shift was over, the Spanish language crew came in
it's awesome.
Wow.
and filmed there. Yeah.
They don't make them like they used to.
They don't.
Yeah, overdubbing? No, we're just going to recast the whole thing.
That definitely happened a lot. I will not check my own facts, but I think the Bela Lugosi 1932 film White Zombie was sneaking onto the sets of Frankenstein
Yep.
and just using Frankenstein's stairways and stuff. So
Resourceful.
That tracks, yeah.
how far are you into Dracula?
Not super far. I'm around page 130, I want to say. So I still have a good chunk of it to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why I'm forever defending that book, because people see that like doorstopper length of it, and I'm like, no, trust me.
Yeah. It's riveting for sure.
Yeah.
Any scenes involving a castle wall yet that you've encountered? Okay, good. No, we won't talk about it. I won't spoil
Okay.
it. It's my favorite part.
Well, I still haven't seen Last Voyage of the Demeter. Demeter?
I think it's Demeter.
Yeah. But I was just like, oh man, somebody finally turned like a movie out of my favorite section of that novel.
So Dracula eventually gets on a boat and leaves Transylvania, and
Yeah.
he's hiding in the basement, or the basement.
The basement. The basement of the boat.
Right. The brig. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In those boxes.
Yeah.
And kills everyone aboard.
Yeah.
Right.
Spoiler for
I've got
the last
that
voyage.
part, yeah.
Right. And like most Dracula movies just skip over that chunk, but like you can obviously it's a common trope in fiction and just stories, you know, people gathering around a fire, talking shit,
Sure.
passing the night away,
Sure.
just like, oh, there's one thing in here that'll kill everybody, but like Alien. Like that entire genre of horror movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because I've always heard Alien referred to as, oh, it's a haunted house in space, but it's a little more than that.
It's a little more than
This
that.
thing is
yeah.
killing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harry Dean Stanton. Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Where was I gonna go with this?
So many Draculas. The one vampire movie that you'd think you would have heard of immediately once you look it up is I am completely blanking on the name of it. That's terrible, but it stars David Bowie, Susan Sarandon, and Catherine Deneuve, and it
The
is
Hunger.
The Hunger. The problem is it's not very good, especially with a cast that stacked. You'd think it'd be more of a classic.
I remember being underwhelmed.
Yeah.
I remember liking the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I remember thinking it had a vibe,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Was that before or after The Man Who Fell to Earth?
After.
Was that Bowie's first?
No, his first movie. Sorry, it's not even a horror movie. It was like Goodbye, Mr. Lawrence or something. It was a war movie.
Man Who Fell to Earth, again, not checking my phone, is mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
So this is like a post Let's Dance David Bowie.
Okay.
This is like
Nope.
almost? No, not
No,
quite.
not even.
Not quite. Isn't it 82?
No, it was
The Hunger?
Oh, The Hunger.
The Hunger,
Sorry,
yeah.
I thought you were still talking about Man Who Fell to Earth.
No.
But yeah, no. The Hunger is definitely post Let's
Man Who
Dance
Fell to
David
Earth is
Bowie.
kind of more like Berlin-y kind of.
I was
Yeah.
underwhelmed by that movie. to be
Druggy
honest.
Bowie.
Yeah.
That's fair. The man could sing.
Yeah.
The man
Oh,
could
yeah.
write a song.
Yeah.
He
Absolutely.
maybe couldn't act. And that's fine. Not everybody
Sure.
can do everything.
I mean, he can dance with Muppets.
Yeah.
It's all good.
yeah.
I just wanted to get back into like other facets of horror. Like I think Hitchcock could maybe help us jump off from there because Psycho is so revered,
Yes.
and that's a whole thing. And he made Strangers on a Train, which has horror energy too.
Yeah.
What others have you watched of his?
The one that I watched most recently was Rear Window.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is not super like horror-y. I guess it's more of a suspense driven one. The Birds,
Mm-hmm.
which
Ah, yes.
seems like people are more split on that movie than I thought. I thought that was sort of universally revered, but I think from what I've seen, some people were pretty dismissive of it. And
I'm going to be a chaos agent here and say I don't really like The Birds, but feel free to try and sell me on it.
that's not something I'm prepared to do because you are somebody who knows about things.
The phone booth restaurant sequence is great.
Yeah. I think to me,
Can
that-
we agree?
the
Sure.
concept of that, it's more like the overarching concept to me that's kind of scary. There are a lot of birds. If they wanted to,
That is true.
we're done.
When I worked at U of M's media library, The Happening had just come out on DVD, and every time I checked it out to somebody, I was like, "You'll never look at salad the same way again."
The Happening,
That scares me as somebody who loves salad.
Oh yeah.
directed by M. Night Shyamalan, starring
Uh-oh.
Mark Wahlberg.
I got tricked into watching an M. Night Shyamalan movie because it was like when people weren't really like, "Oh, he's great," but like he was trying to make a quiet comeback, and I got tricked into watching The Visit because
The
I
Visit.
didn't know it was his movie.
His quiet comeback about visiting grandparents
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
who are possessed.
No.
I forgot already.
Yes, you did, and that's fair. They apparently shot each scene 3 times. The first time being like, they know the twist. The second time being like, oh, they're just normal grandparents, and the third time being like, the kids don't know the twist, but also the grandparents are weird.
Huh.
And that is why the editing for that movie feels as bananas as it does.
Pietro, The Sixth Sense,
Love it.
Unbreakable,
Also love it.
Haven't seen it.
Knock at the Cabin.
Haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So The Knock at the Cabin is M. Night Shyamalan's latest. I think the vibe I got from M. Night is that once he made Old, everyone decided that he was back.
Yeah.
Old is a film where you are on a certain beach and you're aging like 1 year per hour or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's the movie.
What I feel like what were the movies he made about somebody who was supposed to have like multiple personalities?
Oh, Split.
Unbreakable leads into Split 15 years later, and that leads into
Okay.
Glass was the third movie
Yeah.
that no one remembers that brought
That
Bruce
I didn't
Willis
even
back
see.
into the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yep. Sorry, we were talking about Hitchcock, and then we
Yeah.
got derailed into like
Well, I mean,
that guy.
who is M. Night Shyamalan's biggest influence? I mean, I think you
Yeah.
would probably admit
Yeah.
Right.
that's the one.
Who's more problematic? Hitchcock or M. Night Shyamalan?
Well, ooh.
Probably Hitchcock by
Hitchcock.
a smidge.
Yeah.
And
Like,
probably
almost-
just because he like actively tortured or psychologically tortured his
the-
actresses.
Yeah.
Active misogyny, yeah.
That will be a book coming to the 700 soon.
Ooh.
Hitchcock's Blondes.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, because you were recently doing some collection development.
Yes.
Yeah.
I told you about this book I loved called Shock Value that was released about 10 years ago. That
Right. We were talking about
really
that.
spoke to me. It was written by what must be a Kendrick's, not the John Waters book, which is apparently of the same title.
That will also, there's a John Waters book also coming to the 700s collection
Ooh,
soon that I'm
nice.
excited for.
Yeah.
Jason Zieneman was the author of Shock Value. And yeah, it talks about the arrival of Rosemary's Baby kind of being the sea change and everyone's starting to take horror seriously. And that leads us into Exorcist.
So what do you think was responsible for that change? In public opinion, at least.
I feel like it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Right? Because the original Universal monster movies were all based off of like classics of Gothic literature,
Yeah.
like Bram Stoker, Mary Shelley,
Those are bona
H.G.
fides.
Wells, yada
Right.
yada. And then they mined the well of the good horror books and got into kind of, not that I don't love it, but kind of schlocky,
Oh yeah.
a little
more
bit
like
less serious.
B-movie stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then by the time Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist rolled around, those are both based on books again, right?
Right.
And like the current wave of quote unquote prestige horror, like there aren't necessarily books that they're based on, but it's still kind of like could be
Literary.
yeah. Which I kind of hate the distinction between highbrow and lowbrow culture. I don't think there is
Totally.
one. But
Yeah, I
just
agree.
going off the common language of what people know.
Sure. And I'm not here to judge either. If you want to watch Insidious 5 and have a good time, just do it.
Yeah.
If you want to
Yes.
watch The Nun 2, go for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Life short.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I keep saying, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum.
Yeah. I think that's an amazing point. That's an even better point than I could say. It also, the only thing I'll sprinkle on top is that it coincides with like this other cultural sea change of a post big studio era, post 1967, new wave of directors coming in, new energy, all this kind of thing, all these new
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah, like I don't think Rosemary's Baby would have been filmable in like 1957, for example. Like
Right.
10 years earlier, couldn't
I
happen.
wonder when that book even came out.
It wasn't long before the movie.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
it like immediately got optioned.
Yeah. Which is fair if you've read it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, speaking of separating, well, not really speaking of, but just unrelated. I saw a meme the other day with the cover to that movie and then, going, me and the homie is about to separate the art from the artist.
Oh boy, never has that been more topical. And in today's world.
Because I love Rosemary's Baby, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and then we get into the 80s, and every movie that comes out is based on a Stephen King book.
Yep.
Oh, man.
How that works.
I really wanted to bring up Children of the Corn earlier, but I couldn't quite find the way to.
Oh,
Children of the Corn.
let's go.
But I remember watching and be like, oh, this is it?
Pietro is creeped out by kids.
But no, I mean, to me, it's just like there wasn't a lot of substance to it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
As far as Stephen King adaptations go, I don't know if that one is not too high on the list.
1984. I wonder if this qualifies as what they call folk horror, which is
I would
also
say so.
involving The Wicker Man
Yeah.
and a little movie called Midsommar.
Yeah.
Is there a barn? Is there wheat?
Is there a
involved?
barn?
Is it in a remote farmland type situation? Because that would also be Pearl.
Right. Oh, yeah. I would say that.
I like the Simpsons parody of Children of the Corn, perhaps more than I like Children of the Corn.
Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
A 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, folks, in case you're curious. Featuring Linda Hamilton from The Terminator.
Yeah.
And then I think John
yeah.
Carpenter makes a movie in the 90s that is Children of the Corn-esque, but I'm not. But anyway, we should...
Didn't John Carpenter make Christine?
He did make Christine,
Yeah.
which turns 40 this year.
It do.
Also based on a Stephen
Stephen
King.
King, because every movie was a Stephen King
Novel.
adaptation.
Story checks out,
thoughts,
Jeff.
Yeah.
thoughts on Christine?
I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Okay.
Which, I mean, I am left with a fond impression of it, and I think that might be why I haven't gone to revisit it since. Like
Don't
most...
revisit it. You might not like it. But my whole thing is, functionally, from just like what John Carpenter is doing as a director, it's actually a fairly well-directed film. Now, whether or not the actors in it are good or what have you,
Right.
it's fine. Just in terms of what's happening with the camera and the decisions he seems to be making, he seems to be in a zone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, wow, okay, so like competently, this is probably one of his better films, because. And yet, I found an article recently where he's like, I hated the whole thing. I hate that movie. I hate adapting things from books. It was terrible.
His candor is part of his
Part of his charm.
greatness, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now he just makes creepy synth music and plays video
He
games.
is supposedly returning to the director's chair. I got several Google alerts
Oh.
about it.
Wow.
I didn't click on them because I'm like, nope, I'm not actually going to care about this until it turns into actually a thing.
Nice.
Once the filming starts, then I will care. Right. Try not to get my hopes up. But
There's only so much you can do with a demonically possessed car. It doesn't really have
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah, what are you
Yeah.
going to do?
There's not much there to
it's,
drive the plot.
yeah, and that's kind of,
Drive the plot.
Oh,
yeah, no, I caught it.
Okay, great.
I just wasn't going to acknowledge
Okay,
it.
great. I'll get that in there.
I don't know, man. Stephen, this is where I diverge from several other contemporary horror fans because I'm just like Stephen King. Yeah.
as a writer or just as adaptations of his work go? Or any-
Porque no los dos.
Yeah, I think Carrie and Pet
But-
Cemetery are good, but anything else, well, okay, The Shining, fine. But
But
that's
Stephen King famously hates that.
That's
Yeah,
mostly
yeah.
Kubrick's doing, not yours.
Yeah, didn't he make his
Yeah.
own like made-for-TV version because he was so upset about
Yep.
how divergent it was
Yes,
from
he
his
did.
version?
And everyone was like, thanks.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll watch this on USA for the next 20 years, perhaps. Change the channel.
Change the
Yeah.
before we go, let's just mention more about horror trivia.
Hooray!
Oh, right.
Yay.
Yeah.
October 9th, 7 p.m. at 215 West.
Yes. Sign up on our website, fadl.org/trivia.
There's only, I mean, it's already filling up. so
It's actually filling up
to
pretty fast.
instill
this
some
time.
urgency here.
Yeah.
It's a fun time.
It's an incredible.
Your trivia nights are always a fun time.
Oh, thank you.
Indeed.
Oh yeah, both of you have been my second
I
for
know.
those, so
We
you
know how
can
it goes.
confirm.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
There are prizes, especially if you
Yes.
make Simon laugh. You get a tiny prize.
Yes. As I routinely tell people,
Throw in the towel and just make a joke.
Yes. It's not the SATs. I'm not going to take points off for an incorrect answer.
The more you know about Spice World, the better.
Yes. No, actually, okay. This is me going on a tangent
Yeah.
here about trivia night, but at the midpoint, before there's a break, I generally ask like a multi-part question where it's like list all of this thing, and
As
you'll get
many-
10 points
yes.
for each
As
thing.
many things as you can.
Yeah, I'm not telling you what the horror movie one for this time was. I think the last one was. Oh man, I don't actually remember what the last horror movie.
For the list question,
Yeah,
what's a
but-
year ago?
But for example, for campy classics, I was like list all of the guest appearances in Spice World.
Oh yeah.
Like list as many actors and actresses as you can from that movie. And somebody came back from last place to win the whole ding dong thing because they knew the entire cast of
Yes,
Spice
it was
World.
impressive.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Like they were still writing stuff down. I was like literally standing there going, "Okay, 10 seconds. You gotta hit
Yeah.
submit."
Right.
Yes. That was amazing, frankly.
Alan Cummings, Mark McKinney.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on.
Elvis Costello is a bartender.
Fun times.
Yeah. I guess before, please check out the various 700s, the movie, music, etc. section. Lots of fun little books in there, including The Exorcist Legacy, 50 Years of Fear, which I promise I will return soon. But also stuff coming out on DVD soon that we have already purchased that's just not on the shelf yet. Talk to Me. And we do have Skinamarink on DVD. You should come check that out. Form your own opinions.
That title scares me, frankly.
That's fair.
Well, folks, more information in the show notes, of course. We'll have the link for you to sign up. Get your team together for horror trivia at 215 West, October 9th at 7 p.m. Always a pleasure to talk horror films with you, Simon.
Woo!
Pietro, thank you.
All right.
Pietro, I love that.
We're going with it.
We're completely interrupting and derailing the conclusion just so I can ask you one more question.
Okay.
What's the next horror movie you want to watch?
Well, that's interesting, Jeff. I looked through a top 200 horror films to watch list, and I wrote down a few. I have down Tremors,
Uh-huh.
House on Haunted Hill,
Yeah.
Poltergeist, An American Werewolf in London, and The Omen, which I think came up earlier in the conversation.
Yes.
You should take that list and watch all 5 of them, but in the opposite order that you just mentioned.
Yes.
Okay.
And go from there.
That makes sense because it was from 200 to the bottom that I was looking
Oh,
at. So,
and
yeah.
just to swing it back into relating to The Exorcist,
Yeah.
I really miss when the Ford Drive-In Theater during the pandemic did double feature classic horror movies, and I saw The Exorcist and Poltergeist.
That's
and it
great.
had been, I hadn't seen Poltergeist since I was a kid, and that movie has aged remarkably well. It's
Yeah.
very funny and also very spoop.
Yes.
So,
Sweet.
yeah.
That's a movie that starts out kind of slow and then goes to like 165 miles per hour.
Yeah, it is. That escalated quickly, the
Yes.
movie.
Yes. Horror. Go watch them. Go join for the trivia event.
Yeah.
Coming up soon. This is the Ferndale Library Podcast. It's called A Little Too Quiet, and it's brought to you by the Friends of the Ferndale Library. We thank John Duffy for giving us music to open and close each episode, and we thank you for listening. Please go to ferndalefriends.org if you want to find more information about supporting this podcast. And remember to rate, review, subscribe, leave a positive review, tell a friend, and happy Halloween.